You're listening to Lighthouse Conversations, brought to you by Lighthouse Haven, a spiritual home for your awakening soul. Lighthouse Conversations is a show where awakening souls gather to be inspired, connected, and enlightened. Spiritual spark plug and host Chelly Canales, that's me, will guide you through the twists and turns of your journey to a safe haven where you are finally free to live your best light. Each episode contains a conversation with a guest who has gone through a spiritual awakening, detailing their unique and life-changing experiences in an intimate and candid way. Although everyone's experience is as unique as they are, we all share one common thread. We're all seeking something. So, come join us on this journey and be prepared to leave with resources that will supercharge you into inspired action. Here's today's episode. Hello, awakening souls. I'm so happy you came and joined me here again on Lighthouse Conversations. Today I'd like to share a wonderful conversation with you. Melissa Oatman, she has been through it and now she teaches it and now she's a healer. So today's subject is divorce, and there are many awakenings that can happen throughout our lives, and sometimes this relationship-based awakening can come through as something so painful, so hard, something earth-shattering, but through those breaks, and her book is called Beautifully Broken, through those breaks you can come back together with the gold of the lessons and the rediscovery of yourself, or sometimes even for the first time, discovering who you truly are, learning to trust your intuition, and also how to get through it with community. There's something so impactful about knowing that other people have been through things and they've survived. And knowing someone and, just having a friend to talk to about it is a beautiful thing. But there's also something about having a coach or a mentor who has come out the other side of it and has the tools paired with the spiritual teachings, paired with the energy work, paired with the breath work, paired with physical exercises that can be done that can lead towards this path of healing. So I hope you'll take a moment to listen to my interview with Melissa. She's got a lot of wisdom to share. She has a heart that not only has been through the ringer, if you will, it has done so to be able to encapsulate and hold others in their pain, in their grief, in their hurt. So take a moment and take a deep breath, and let's spend the next, half an hour or so together going through and seeing the gold, seeing the beauty through the pain. Enjoy. And welcome to the show, Melissa. So lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so grateful to have you here because one thing we actually haven't touched on much on this podcast yet is the subject of divorce and how, in its own right, even though it's something that is extremely challenging for so many reasons, it can also be a rebirth and an awakening of sorts. I want to hear about your journey. Talk me through your awakening.
So that is an excellent question. So I started my awakening really probably about 18 years ago. I was married and in a very toxic marriage where, there was some emotional and mental abuse going on. And I was the mom of twins who were a year old. And I just didn't even want to get out of bed every day. I dreaded my life, and that's horrible. You're a mom, a new mom. You should be loving life and loving everything that's happening with your kids, and I wasn't. My family liked to say that I was sort of like a zombie. I was physically present, but I was not present in my life. So I knew I had to do something, and I finally one day just got the courage to leave. I don't know where I mustered up the courage, but I guess really it was my children, because I thought, they don't deserve to have a mom like this. That's not their fault. And I thought, I don't want my son to think it's okay for him to treat other women like this. And I don't want my daughter to think it's okay for her to be treated like this. So for them, I mustered up the courage and I left that abusive marriage. And it was hard because there was a lot of emotional manipulation going on. And so my ex would cry and make me feel bad. And because I'm an empath, which I didn't know at the time, but I know now, it made it so hard to leave because I just he would cry and I would feel bad, and guilt worked a lot with me. I had a lot of that growing up with my own mother. And so then I realized, you know what, he can cry at the drop of a hat. He's manipulating me. So I just had to not look back and just keep moving forward. And that was the first sort of awakening in my life. I've had a couple. And after that one, I decided, I needed to go get a job now, because I was staying at home with them and I had nothing. I mean, literally, when we went through the divorce, the lawyer said to me, well, you have nothing, so you don't have to worry about splitting anything. And that made me feel horrible. I was like, I have nothing. Hearing that out loud was just like, wait a minute, I'm not nothing,
No.
So that was that moment that I was like, okay, I have to build a life for myself. So I actually had a degree in German and business, and I was a finance manager when I met my ex-husband, and I ended up quitting that job when I got pregnant because it was stressful and I hated it. And I thought to myself, you can't go back to that kind of job because you don't even like it. So my mom suggested that I substitute teach because, she said they always need people and it's something you can do right away and you just have to have a bachelor's degree. And in doing that, I absolutely loved it. So I ended up going back to school and getting my teaching certificate. So I substitute taught during the day, and then at night I would go to school. And I was able to, because I had already had a degree, do that in about a year's time. And so I got my degree, and then I got a teaching job. Then I was driving an hour each way every day to and from work because there were no German teaching jobs where I live. So I was having to drive to another state to.
Wow.
And I did that for a lot of years, and my kids became teenagers, and I hadn't dated or done anything like that because where was the time to do anything? Because
I had
a
full plate.
Master's degree in between there and all of that. I was doing all of that. And, my daughter was like, and in between this time too, dealing with a toxic ex with your children and trying to co-parent. And that was all like a nightmare. And so finally my kids were in high school, and my daughter said, Mom, why you need to date? Like, you need to get out there. Like, you need a life. So she helped me set up like my online dating profile. And we had a fun time doing laughing, and she was helping me scroll through and looking at these guys. And so we did that, and I ended up finding someone that I dated for about 6 months, and it was great. But then same kind of patterns of behavior started showing up. And so we broke up, and I thought to myself, okay, you're doing something to attract these same types of guys. Like, there's something you're doing. It can't just be that, I just happen to keep picking or finding the wrong kinds of guys. Like, there's something. So I took this course about relationships and healthy relationships and what they look like and how, because I didn't know. My parents divorced when I was 3, and my dad just, he moved out of state when I was 9, and I saw him like once a year, and he just kind of, not like he was trying to be absent, he just was absent because he wasn't physically there. And so I didn't know what a healthy relationship was even supposed to look like. So through taking this course, I realized, oh my gosh, like, you actually were doing a lot of things that attracted these types of guys without even realizing it. So that course really opened my eyes a lot to self-worth, which I didn't have. I didn't realize how low my self-esteem actually was, because I was very successful in my job. I became the department chair and, had taken kids on trips and had done all of these things and was successful. But it was in that area of my life that I wasn't. And through this course, she said, a lot of women who are very successful in other areas of their lives are not when it comes to relationships. And here's why. And so we dove into that self-love portion, which was the biggest thing. When you're looking to find relationships, first you have to work on the one you have with yourself. So that's what I spent about 6 months doing, was just diving into that course and really working on self-love. And around the same time, I started listening to a podcast because I had an hour drive to and from work, and my mind, I was an overthinker from way back, and I would drive myself insane with the thoughts that I had. And I found this.
I can relate.
Exactly. I think most people can. Our minds can be so negative sometimes and just take you down that rabbit hole. And I found this podcast that was all about mindset shifting and positive thinking and energy work. And this was something I had never heard of before. I'd never heard of Reiki before. And
what's the podcast name?
Her podcast was Stepping into the Light. And since then, like, she's kind of shifted what she does. So I don't follow her anymore, but she was definitely the one who started what I call the grand awakening. This was a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
Woke up thinking there had to be more to life than this. So I was listening to her and everything she said resonated with me. And I thought, I really need to work with her. She did readings. So I contacted her. I was like, I'd like a reading. And she said, you're supposed to be a healer. You're supposed to be doing this kind of work. And I thought, that's so, no. But then a few months later, I went to my sister's like, oh, there's this psychic fair. Let's go for fun. So I was like, okay, yeah. So we went. And a second person was like, you're supposed to be doing this work. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, well, there must be something to this. And so I started taking a Reiki course with the woman from the podcast. I worked with her. I did a past life regression with her actually also. And it was so fascinating. And so I ended up taking several courses with her and became a certified Reiki practitioner, past life regressionist. And I do readings now too for people. And I actually started moving into coaching people because what I realized was there are a lot of people who are going through the same things that I'm going through. And I have all of these tools now that I use that help me to get through it and to get to where I am now. And so I've been able to work with them and to help them. And that sort of also led to the book that I wrote, which I just sat down and I thought, I'm going to write about my experiences in a toxic relationship and what I've dealt with in being a single mom, because I didn't think it was going to be a book. Honestly, I sat down, I thought, I'm going to write this to get my feelings out.
Yes.
It's going to be like a cathartic journaling. And I started writing, and then I looked and I was like, wow, maybe this could be a book, because I'd already had what could be several chapters and it still kept coming. So I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. And then I have a friend who is an editor, and he edits for textbook companies. And I just said, hey, I sort of wrote this book. I think it could be a book. Would you mind just editing it for me? And I'll pay you or whatever. And he's like, no, you're not paying me. And yes, I'll edit it. And he looked through it and he said, oh my gosh, this is really good, because I took my story plus advice plus humor and I sort of mixed it all together. And it's a self-help journey, if you will, that uses my own examples from my story. And there are tools all throughout this book, like tappings, meditations, journaling, to help people, other women, and not just for women, but that's generally who is attracted to my work, help them realize that divorce is not a death sentence. Divorce is a chance for you to totally reinvent yourself and realize, hey, if I was living in a life that I didn't really like, how can I change that so that I'm living a life I absolutely love? And that's kind of been my journey, is learning how to live my life in a way that is completely fulfilling and joyful and abundant. And I've been in places where my life was the total opposite of that. So I'm hoping to help other women figure out how to do that as well, much faster than it took me to learn.
And no doubt you are. And I truly believe this, and I say it all the time: when one person tells their truth, tells their story, countless others heal, because they're allowed to see themselves in you. It makes them feel less alone. And I love that, by someone who's been through it already, your hope is to help them avoid some of those pitfalls or longer journey, or longer paths on the same journey. Now, granted, everyone does have their own journey, but having a companion through that is highly valuable. The book is called Beautifully Broken. Talk to me about how you came up with the title for that.
So the theory is, I was thinking about the story of the Japanese pottery.
Yes.
When it breaks, they actually put it back together with this gold paint, and they make it more beautiful than it actually was originally. And so my thinking was that I had to be broken open so that God's light could come in and fill all of the cracks and put me back together to make me who I was supposed to be, who I came here to be. We were not meant to come to earth to be broken and poor and sad and all of those things. Those are the things that happen to us because of the conditions that we learned growing up and through society. We're really meant to come here to flourish and to be abundant and joyful and happy. And so many of us aren't that. But what we have to realize is that we can choose to fill the brokenness in our lives with healing, with love for ourselves. And all of that makes us like that Japanese pottery where it puts us back together and we are made to be more beautiful than we were before.
I definitely agree with that. And it's important to know that sometimes we can't do that on our own, and we do need a community to help put us back together. And, although we were brought here, we should be able to have abundant lives and be happy and all that. We also have to understand that not everybody comes from the same place in terms of what they were born with. There's people who can't just be like that. There's systemic things in place, there's societal things in place that also deal with that. So, it's hard to do it without community and without help from others who realize those deficiencies, if you will, to help to make change in general. So I just kind of want to make that caveat as well. Sometimes it's not just as simple as I'm going to change my mindset and to get better. I feel like that's a major part of it. And there's also things outside of us that also need help shifting, if you will, by the people around us. What part has community played in your own healing journey?
Oh, it's played a huge part in my journey. I talk about this in my book over and over again, that I was lucky that I had a tribe, I call them my tribe, who helped me with my children, because I do believe it takes a village to raise children and just to help one another, because life is so tough. I was lucky that I had family who didn't give up on me, because even when they saw me in this self-destructing mode, just the zombie every day, they could have said, well, we don't know what to do with her. But they never gave up. They just kept praying for me and offering assistance. And they've been there, many, many times for me. And the interesting thing is, you talked about how we have to be able to shift things outside of ourselves too, to help us. And what I truly believe is when we work on ourselves and when we shift ourselves, those around us tend to shift as well. When I started on my spiritual journey, at first my family would say, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you taking Reiki? Why are you doing this? And it was questioning what I was doing and almost like, I think she's lost her mind.
Right.
It's insane. And then it became, well, what are you doing? Because you seem so happy. Well, how are you doing that? Because your life seems to be a lot better. So what are you doing? And through me, my sister would ask me if I could help her and do Reiki for her. And like, they've wanted past life regressions and all of those things. So my family sort of come around, and my mom was on my podcast to talk about her own experiences. So going from she's nuts to because we want to support her is a great thing. And I totally agree with you that most people don't have the tools they need to help them and to get better. And that's not their own fault. It's because it's how were you raised, where all of it plays into that. I didn't have the tools either. That's why it took me 20 plus years to figure it out, was I did not have the tools. And I had tried traditional counseling and it helped. But with counseling, it was like, here's why your life is the way it is. But I could never get to that point of, well, how do I make it different? How can I get better? And I did that through working with a coach. The woman who was my mentor, she coached me too. Like, not only did I take classes, but we had group coaching sessions where she would say, you need to do this and you need to do this. And, that's the same thing that I do with women. And I'm not like a traditional coach where there's a cookie cutter format where you come to me and like, I put your name in and I tell you to do all the same things. I don't work like that at all. When people work with me, I actually tap into, I can tap into other people's energy, and I can feel what they're going through and what's happening and what they need to work on. And then I give them the specific tools. I gone through a hypnotherapy certification now too. So if they come with like fears and phobias, we can get rid of that. If they have limiting beliefs surrounding themselves, or low self-esteem, self-worth issues, I have all of these tools that I can use to help them. And actually, they're doing all of the work. I'm just showing them how to get there. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing because I know through my own experiences of working with someone, it absolutely changed everything about my life in the best way possible.
Yes. And, it's interesting you go back a little bit to you being an empath and how you are able to read and pick up on the energy and all that. I am too. And it took me the longest time to figure out why I was the way I was. It took me years to understand what it was an empath. I hadn't heard that word before, and why my experiences were so different than other people. And just learning the word, the terminology, put me on a path to healing. So tell me a little bit about what learning those terms, or, even going through the Reiki experience and the past life experience did in terms of the understanding of who you were as a person and how you showed up in the world.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I, like so many people who are empaths and didn't realize it, I knew when people were not being honest with me. And, if somebody would say, I'm fine, when you get that I'm fine answer, I'm like, no, you're not. Like, I know you're not fine, and I know why, but I can't really tell you why. And I don't know why I know why. And that was before I really developed it. Now it's really strong, and sometimes it can even feel physical pain and symptoms that other people have when I'm working with Reiki. But I had no clue what it was. And I just knew that people would tell me, like, you're being overly sensitive.
Oh, yes.
Mad because I'm like, what? I'm not being sensitive. Or, you're overreacting was what I would get to some things too. And I would think, how can I be overreacting? I know you're not being honest with me. And later they would come out and say, like, well, I lied to you about it. I'm like, yes, I know you did. I absolutely knew you were lying at the time you were lying to me, but I didn't have proof of anything because I'm not, I didn't have the ability at the time to hear the words that people were saying. Or, now, like, sometimes I can actually, well, you said this, but you told me this, because those abilities are developing even more rapidly with me, that that I can hear my guides now sometimes too, and all of those things. And those things would have scared me a long time ago. Like, I would wake up in the middle of the night now and, just see an angel at the foot of my bed, and a long time ago that would have freaked me out and I would have thought I was going insane. Or, that when I work with particular angels, I'll see sparkles of light out of the corner of my eye. And I'm like, okay, that's Archangel Michael that I've been praying to all day to help. And people would have said, you're insane. But I do Facebook Lives, and I've had people, because I'm not paying attention when I'm doing the live, I'm pulling cards and I'm giving them. And I will have people write on the comments there, like, you have orbs floating all around the back of you. And like, there's an angel standing. I'm like, I know they're there, but I'm just not paying attention because I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing. So it's hard to explain, but if you're out there and you're an empath, you're not going crazy. This is totally a thing. It's normal. It's just that not everyone has those abilities. I believe everyone can have those abilities, and we're born with those abilities, but a lot of people have blocked it over the years. And so if you're seeing things, feeling things, sensing things, you're not crazy. You're just very much in tune with your soul, and I believe with your abilities.
This resonates so much because I've been in many empath narcissist relationships before, and they hate it when you call them out. It's like, no, this is what I know. I know this, and I'm telling you this. And so they're like, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're overreacting. Oh, you're too much. And then as you start to learn that that's the response, it becomes like, I will not be accepted in this relationship if I continue to bring it up. And so that's how people get quiet. That's why people shut up about it. And then that's how the toxicity continues in those relationships. And I've actually found it's harder, to be in or stay in relationships because I pick it up so quickly that it's a blessing and a curse, but by that same token, why would you want to be with that person anyway if they bring that to you and would try to gaslight you into not trusting your own intuition. Mine shut down almost entirely. I was that zombie you talked about when I, left New York City, and I was like, okay, I don't even know how to get in touch anymore because it's been shut down repeatedly. So it's so important to trust that. And it's like this built-in lie detector, which just makes people real careful around me. So it's so great to hear someone else say, that's part of their experience. Do you find that a lot of these revelations, like light bulbs, go off with the people that you coach that suddenly realize this is the case and that's what's been happening to them?
Yeah, I know when they're lying to me too, because it'll be very confusing. Like, I had a client one time who came to me and started talking about this partner she had, and like, I think this is a twin flame and it's the one, but this happened and we broke up, and I'm just thinking, like, boy, I'm very confused because what she's telling me and what I'm getting don't seem to be the same thing, and I don't really know. And then I realized that she started opening up more, like, oh, she wasn't telling me the entire truth. And that's why this was very confusing. But also in the same way, if I have clients, I will have clients who work with me. And here's the thing, like, don't work with me if you're not willing to make the change, because I'm not going to hold your hand and be like, great job, because you did nothing. I'm not going to lie to you and keep taking your money. Like, that's not me. And so if I have people that I work with who say, yeah, I've been doing all the things you told me to do and been using all of the tools, and I still just feel this way. And in my mind, I'm going, yeah, you're not doing anything that I told you to do, or else there would be some change going on. And you can just tell, again, about the lying and that they're not being upfront. And so it's helpful to me, because I can call people out on that and just say, look, you got to get real. If you really want to see change, you're going to have to do what I'm telling you to do, and, actually make the effort. So many people want to take a magic pill. Everybody wants to do that, right? It's just easier if I can just take a pill and I'm better tomorrow. But that's not how real change happens. And that's why diets don't work, because you can only keep that going for so long. And it's not a habit that's going to form into a life-changing, life-altering habit. It's something you do in the short term. And so you can't see those effects. Like, you're not going to continue losing weight if then you go back to the normal way that you eat. So in the same way, when you make those changes in your life, you've got to do things that make real change. And that means, like, I never tell people, like, you should completely overhaul your whole life in one day. No, because you'll just give up and quit, because that just seems like impossible. It's all of the small changes you make every single day that really make the long-lasting change. Like, I have an online course that's called Love Your Life, and each day there's a lesson that shows you how to implement one thing or change one thing in your life every day that ends up creating lasting change. And so it's whether it's like, I have a whole lesson about who are archangels and how can you pray to them and how can you work with them and what do they do? How can you make small changes in your diet every day so that you feel better and you're healthier? How can meditation help you? How can you do tappings when fear and anxiety come in? So every day there's a new tool that you have that you can use that just helps you make those little bitty shifts, so that by the end you've made a big, huge shift, but you don't realize it. And it's long lasting, because these are things that take like 5 minutes every day. It's something that is not very time consuming, but it makes a huge difference for your entire day.
It's so doable, and it's true. The overwhelm can stop someone in their tracks. And so bite-sized pieces at a time, and you look back, wow, look at how far I've come. That does seem like the best way to make lasting change. I wanted to ask you, so between your experience and all the people you've coached, if you had one message for someone going through a painful divorce right now, what would you like to share with them?
I would just like to say, the pain, that's only temporary. Pain is just a thing that we have to go through because it serves a purpose. There's a purpose in every pain that we have. And eventually you'll be able to see the lesson in the divorce. Like, if you look at something and say to yourself, what was the lesson? Like, what was I supposed to learn here? What was I supposed to take away from this to be better? You can leave the pain behind. because it served its purpose, because you see the lesson, and keep the lesson and move forward and keep moving forward, because, there's so many tools out there to help you feel better and to make your life better. The pain doesn't have to be a permanent thing, but the lesson can stay with you forever. And you'll look back someday and realize that was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I discovered who I truly was.
That resonates. There's so much truth in that. And it's hard to see it in the middle of it when you're going through it. But hindsight does reveal those gifts for sure.
One of the things I said in my book was, it's hard to see the forest past the trees, because when you're right there in it and the pain is so big and it's so strong and it's so heavy, you think you're never going to heal and you're never going to get over it. But I promise you that this too shall pass, and it will. And there is beauty on the other side of that pain. I absolutely would not go back and change anything that happened to me, even when I look at it now, because at the time, though it was very painful, it has made me who I am. And I know that there's no way that I could be helping all of the people that I've helped and doing what I do and loving what I do had I not gone through all of this.
That's so true. It's a comfort, I think, to the people who work with you to know that you've been in the trenches. You understand what that's like. So it makes you so uniquely qualified to do this. And it's a brave thing for you to say, I'm putting my pain and my experience out there. That's a very vulnerable thing to do. But you're inviting others into that journey with you and giving them a support and a partnership during that. So that's a beautiful gift. Speaking of that, how can people work with you if they're looking for support?
So my website is just melissaoatman.com. And on my website, you'll see all the services I offer. Right now, I have a 10-day intensive self-love course, and it's only $20 right now because I wanted to make it accessible for everybody. And it's amazing. I've already had people reaching out to me like, oh my gosh, thank you for making this course. This is the best thing ever. So if you're wanting to make small changes and you're really just not sure how to do that, that's a great place to start because it's so affordable. My book is also available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Goodreads. And there's an audio book, which is great if you're driving and you like funny people, because my friend says that I should get all of the royalties from all of the Karen memes out there because I did that joke throughout my entire book. So you'll appreciate that because laughter is very healing as well. And I think that we need to be able to laugh at ourselves as well as, just not taking ourselves too seriously sometimes. So you can work with me there. And I have my podcast also, Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness, which is a weekly podcast that you can check out. So.
Well, I love it all. Thank you so much for being on the show and for sharing your light and your gifts. And I know there will be many people out there who feel connected to your work and feel fortified by your message. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Lighthouse Conversations. If this show resonates with you, it would mean so much to have you rate, review, and share. Don't forget to follow us at chellycanales.com and on social media.